In this video, we're going to go over an email conversation that Mike had with a meeting planner to book a gig, and we're going to go over this to see what he could have done better to actually get the gig.
How'd you do that?
I see that success is not something you pursue, it is something you are.
All right, so let's go over Mike's email conversation, and I believe this is the right order in terms of how the conversation went. So first, Mike actually sent an email out, then he got a response, and here's the response. The response from her is, "Hi Mike, I'll be meeting with the Education Committee next Tuesday to fine-tune the topics and begin selecting the speakers. Would you please send your bio and plan sheet and any other information that might be helpful?" And so first thing that I would do, I wrote down a few notes for you. First thing that I would do immediately is in the CRM, I would go and I would put a follow-up date for Wednesday, because she said that they're planning on Tuesday. So the next day I want to contact them as soon as they're done. And so you want to go into the CRM and immediately say, okay, here's the date I got to follow up. And remember, if you can keep track of all this stuff in your head, like if you can keep track of, oh, I got to contact Carrie on Wednesday and I got to contact John on Tuesday. If you can keep track of that in your head, you're not doing enough. You're not engaging in enough activities. It should be to the point where you're overwhelmed with the amount of people you need to contact, where you can't keep track of them in your head. That's why you use a CRM. That's why you put a follow-up date inside of your CRM. So number one is I would immediately put a follow-up date inside the CRM for Wednesday. And then I would have responded by saying like, well, how do you guys decide which speakers you're going to bring in? And so a lot of the speakers make the mistake of telling rather than asking. And when you're trying to sell, you need to ask rather than tell. And the more you talk, the less likely you're going to get the sale. And they've done a lot of studies in terms of sales, and that's just what happens is the more the salesperson talks, the less likely they get the sale. And so you need to ask questions rather than talk. So that's the first thing I would have done. Here's the response that Mike said. So Mike said, "Carrie, thanks for the response. I've attached my bio and the keynote offering. I'm currently writing a book around the keynote topic as well." And so before I go on with Mike's response, so number one, a lot of speakers seem to do this. A lot of speakers come across as really, really desperate to get the gig. I mean, like really, really desperate. And you got to think, like, when you respond and you say, "Thanks for the response," imagine the conversation you're having with someone. Imagine you say like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they say, "Oh, it's going really good." And you say, "Thanks for responding." That's kind of weird. That's like kind of desperate. And so you don't want to do that when you're sending people an email. Like by being over nice, by being over kind and over professional, you are coming across as desperate. And when you come across as desperate, you are guaranteeing the fact that you will not get the gig. Think about how the top people respond, like the top speakers. Imagine if Tony Robbins were responding. Think about, would he ever say, "Thank you for responding to my email"? Like he would never say that. And so you don't want to do things like that because it's just way, way too desperate. All right, so he said, I've attached this thing. Okay, so he did that, and then organizational structure is such a hot button and issue right now for the hospitality industry, and a lot of speakers do this where they are demonstrating what they know, and by you talking about what you know, you're not selling them. There's a difference between selling and actually talking about what you know. When you are selling, you need to be saying things like, companies like XYZ brought me in because they watched this video. And then you have a link to your website with a demo video or something. And what this does, it creates curiosity. When you say like companies like X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, when you say all these companies brought you in because of this video, that creates curiosity for her to click on it. It says like, I wonder what this video is. It must be pretty good. And so That's how sales works. The entire thing that you want to do is you want to bring them to your website. Even though she asks, whenever someone asks for a bio or anything like that, you ignore what they ask for, because there's a difference between what someone asks for and what they actually want. What they ask for might be a bio. What they want is for you to tell them why they should pick you over someone else. And so the reason why they should pick you over someone else is so when they go to your website and they see the video, that's the reason why. But when you send them a bio, when you send them a one sheet, you're essentially saying, I look just like this other guy. This guy named John, this guy named Mike, this guy named Jane, you look just like everyone else. And so understand the difference between what people ask for and what they want. Whenever someone is trying to book you, what they're asking for is, why should I pick you? What's different about you? That's what they're really asking. So that's what you need to understand whenever they ask for anything in general. And just understand that you're really just trying too hard in general. Don't try too hard. And when you mention your book, so you said, I'm currently writing a book around the keynote topic as well. It's kind of like, why did you even talk about that? Like, why did you mention that? You are selling, instead of selling a $10, $15 book, you need to sell a $10,000, $15,000 speech. So you're basically saying, hey, focus on my $10 book instead of, hey, focus on my $15,000 speech. And even though you can sell your book afterwards, you don't want to try to sell before. You haven't even got the commitment for the actual speech, let alone the books or anything. It's literally like someone saying, like, hey, we would like to give you $100 for this product. And you say, oh, I've got a product over here for a penny. What do you think about this? And so you don't want to do that. You want to sell your speech. Then after the speech is sold, now you can talk about the books. Now you can say, hey, would you guys also like the books? After they're already sold. But right now, you're talking about your books way too early in the conversation. And at the bottom, you say, I'm a huge fan of the Twin Cities and all this stuff. And I assume that you did that to, well, I don't really know why exactly, but basically, once again, you're talking too much. And by talking too much, you are losing the sale. And so don't talk. You want to ask a lot of questions. And then once again, you said, thanks for your consideration. Once again, it's coming across as desperate. So do your best not to come across as desperate. And this is just a shift in how you think. Now, here's the next part. The next part, she says, hi, Mike. Our topic for the keynote is a mix of leadership and overcoming adversity and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, she says, what is your fee for a 60-minute presentation? And here's Mike's response. Mike said, hi, Carrie. It sounds like that topic is right in line with my presentation and the work that I do for the clients. I made this page just for you in the committee with some ideas, testimonials. Click here. And then he says, I found that some additional content outside. So basically, he's giving them some more stuff other than the fee schedule. And he says, what we also do, what's also included is a webinar that we can do, a 30, 45-minute webinar, a 90-day roadmap, then this and this and this. And here's what the fee schedule looks like. Now, a couple things with this. So number one is I would post the fee schedule on the website. I wouldn't attach it to the email at all. I would post it on the website because remember, your goal is to get them on your website so they can click around and look at the videos, look at the testimonials, and they can look at your website where your website's so good, it makes them say like, damn, this guy's a celebrity. And so that's the image you want to project from your website. So when you send them the fee schedule, you just send a link to your website. It's Mike, then slash fee schedule or something. And on there, it just has the fee schedule if you want to do it like that. What I always tell people to do is you just want to say it right there and then. So one of the things that I hate, and a lot of people hate, is when you ask them a question and they don't actually answer the question. And so she asked you, she said, what is your fee for a 60-minute presentation? In the response, you didn't actually give her an answer. You made her click to get the answer. And so what you should have said is something like this. You should have said, like, a 60-minute presentation is X. Like, a 60-minute presentation is $10,000. It's whatever you're charging. 60-minute presentation is $10,000. We would just need a 50% deposit. Then you and I will get on the phone so I can get more details to know your audience better. Should I send the contract to you or to someone else? Now, notice a difference between this reply and your reply. Whereas this reply, where you say the 60-minute presentation is X, you immediately answer a question. So she knows that, hey, this is a guy who's direct. Great. He's a guy who's not wasting time. So bam. You immediately answer the question. Then you say, we would just need a 50% deposit. Then you and I will get on the phone. What you're doing at this point is you're assuming that they already booked you. Like you would just assume. And if you notice, a lot of the top salespeople, they do this all the time. They assume that you are already buying this thing. And this is much better than speaking from a weak and desperate standpoint where it's like, hey, please consider me. Hey, would you please talk to me on the phone? And so you just assume, because imagine if you were doing 100 events a year, like you were doing 100 events and tons of people. Imagine the event was September 22nd. And you have 3 other people who contacted you for other events that are on September 22nd as well. Would your response be the exact same as what you just did? It wouldn't. Your response would be something like this. It would be like, hey, 60-minute presentation is X. We just need a 50% deposit. And then we're good to go. And of course, if you really did have other events on the same date, you would even mention that. You would even say, like, I've actually got FedEx who wants this date as well. So I need to know your answer in the next 24 hours. And so notice the difference. One of them is desperate. The other one is just, hey, I'm booked up like crazy. Chop, chop. And so that's kind of the state of mind that you want to be in. You just don't want to come across as desperate. Never, ever, ever come across as desperate, because desperation will kill your entire business. And then at the end, she says, or Mike did a great job by following up. So after he sent her all that, he did a great job following up, and he said, like, hey, hope the planning session was last week, and I know all the planning that goes in here. Would you like to have a quick phone call? And then she replied by saying, thanks so much for reaching out and offering your services for hire. We decided to go on a different speaker for this event. And I'm actually going to make an entirely new video, because where she said we decided on a different speaker for this event, I'm going to make a new video just for that. But what Mike should have done at this point is he should have replied by saying, who was the speaker and why did you guys decide to go with him? What you're trying to do is you want to understand, why didn't they go with you? Usually the reason is because your website isn't all that great. Now, I'll be honest, they won't actually give you the real answer. They won't say, well, because your website sucked. They won't say that. Instead, they'll just say, oh, we just thought he was like more on message or something like that. And what you'll find is that usually that's not the case. Usually the case is that they brought in some celebrity guy who has absolutely nothing to do with their message at all, but they just brought him in because he's like a celebrity type of guy. So whenever someone says they went with a different speaker, you need to figure out why. And also remember when I said don't come across as desperate, once again, the response is coming across as desperate. When you say, would it be helpful to have a quick phone call? You've already offered this like 3 times or so. And so once again, you're coming across as desperate, rather than if you would have said like, hey, Carrie, I have someone else who's interested in this date in September 22nd. Are we good to go, or should I give it to them? And so notice the difference. The difference is one person's desperate. The other one's like, hey, I'm booked up. I need to know right now. And that's how you need to come across, is I'm booked up. I really need to know. And a lot of speakers are afraid to do that because they're afraid they're going to lose the event. But trust me, that's the right way to do it. Coming across as desperate, what that tells them is, it tells them he's not actually getting booked. And we want someone who is consistently getting booked, someone who is a real pro. We want this pro guy who is always on stage. That's what we want. But someone who comes across as desperate, that tells us he's not really getting booked, he's not in demand, nothing. And so they decide not to go with you. That's how I would change the email conversation. And listen, guys, if you're not a member of the Speak Pro Academy, you got to join the Speak Pro, because this is what we go over. over. We go over everything that you should be saying, everything you should be doing, like not some generic theory-based stuff. We go over the real detailed type stuff. So if you're not a member of the Speak Pro Academy, go to speakproacademy.com, join the Speak Pro, and we will go over everything for you.